Iceland sits on one of the most volatile pieces of real estate on the planet. The movement of the tectonic plates pull apart, pushing heat and steam to the surface more so than anywhere else. But rather than fearing this energy, Iceland has learned to harness it, turning this power into opportunity. And every so often, Earth reminds us how it all begins.
Beneath the icy skies, Iceland is not what it seems. This is a cold island sitting just below the Arctic Circle that somehow runs warm. Volcanoes breathe beneath the glaciers, geysers shoot out of the snow, and black rock still steams from its last eruption. In 2010, one of those volcanoes, Eyjafjallajökull, threw ash into the atmosphere and global aviation into chaos.
The air travel chaos caused by that giant ash cloud from that volcano eruption in Iceland.
Volcanic ash has caused the worst disruption in air travel since 9/11.
And this is the cause of this air traffic crisis, an eruption at a glacier hundreds of kilometers away in Iceland.
But that was just one of the more than 30 active volcanoes here. This is a land built from fire and ice, and it's the fire that never sleeps. Iceland sits directly on a tectonic boundary where two massive plates are pulling apart. The North American plate and the Eurasian plate slowly move away from each other, stretching the Earth's crust. This boundary forms the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Most of it's underwater, but in Iceland, it breaks the surface. That ridge becomes a rift zone cutting across the island, concentrating volcanic activity along a single corridor. As the crust splits, magma rises through fractures, feeding Iceland's many volcanoes. In late 2023, the Earth cracked open once again here. A series of eruptions rocked the Reykjanes Peninsula, the most violent in recent memory, forcing the town of Grindavik to evacuate. By 2025, it had rightfully earned the nickname Lava Town. Changing your perspective, you see how the lava flow has become ingrained in the town's landscape. The volcano may have paused for the moment, but the ground is still restless.
I'm walking along one of the newly constructed lava barriers on the outskirts of a town called Grindavik in southwestern Iceland. It is a community that is living under the constant threat of volcanic activity, especially since the end of 2023. When you stop and look around, this is just raw nature. According to Norse mythology, this land was built by giants and gods, and when you stop and look around, you can understand just why. But today, it's not just myths that are guiding us, it's also cutting-edge science.
And most of that science begins here at Iceland's Meteorological Office. This is the country's first line of defense, not just against snowstorms, but also volcanic eruptions. Kirsten Jónsdóttir heads the department responsible for monitoring volcanoes, earthquakes, and crustal deformation. She also happens to be one of the people who helped decide where and how those lava barriers I was walking on outside of Grindavik were built. She shows me what's in her arsenal: satellites, GPS arrays, fiber optic cables, and perhaps even more data than most universities could process in a year. And it's all part of an integrated early warning and monitoring system.
So Iceland is one of the most geologically active places on Earth. I'm wondering if you could mention start by mentioning some of the core technologies that this office uses to research and to monitor earthquake and volcanic activity in real time.
We use different technologies. It's very important to apply different techniques because you don't want to just rely on one thing. You never know what the Earth is going to do. And it's really, in our experience, relying on just one thing, it's not good. It's important to have kind of different things to compare and make like a joint assessment of what's going on. So the core technologies we are using, they are based on satellite data, for example. So we are using satellites in about 700 kilometers height above Earth. And they give us a very clear picture of how the crust is deforming. So prior to volcanic eruptions, we see how the volcanoes are inflating. During eruptions, we see how the volcanoes are deflating as the magma is actually coming up to the surface. We also use the satellite data to monitor how the lava is advancing during eruptions. And lately, and what we're very proud of, is how we're using fiber optic sensing in our operational early warning system for volcanic eruptions.
If I could specifically ask you about sort of the satellite-based imagery, what sets it apart from different technologies?
So what we gain from the satellite imagery is the spatial coverage. And so it helps us kind of assess where the volcano, like where is the magma accumulating underneath the crust. So what we do is that we do modeling. We use the data, both the INSAR data from the satellites and from individual GPS data, and we jointly make a model with inversion to assess like how much magma is accumulating, and we are even following this day by day to see how much magma is accumulating in the magma chamber. And during eruptions, we can also kind of see the deflation and how much magma is actually leaving the magma chamber and coming up to the surface. And this is very important because when we have repeated eruptions, we kind of know where the threshold is. So we can say, okay, we know that this magma chamber can withhold about 30 million cubic meters of magma. And then we just follow how much magma do we have now? Okay, it's like 20, 23, 24. So we know we are coming closer to this threshold. And this helps us also kind of provide the warning to our stakeholders.
You're talking about this office not relying solely on one technology. Another technology that's being talked about a lot is the fiber optic sensing, especially around Grindavik, where you're measuring seismic and volcanic activity. Tell me a little bit about this fascinating technology and how it's being repurposed to how it's being used today.
Yeah, so what we are doing new, and to my knowledge nobody else is doing in the world, is that we are actually using it in an operational sense. So we are relying on the fiber optic data for early warning because what we see prior to the eruption is that the fiber optic cable is actually stretched. So it's being pulled as the magma is coming closer to the surface. So we are applying like an early warning. So we see the signal repeatedly prior to the eruptions.
Yes, volcanoes may destroy, but the truth is they also give. Because when the earth cracks open, it also reveals heat. A heat that Iceland doesn't just endure, but also captures. And, you guessed it, turns into power. Rain and melted ice seep deep underground where they encounter hot volcanic rock and heat up to extreme temperatures. That superheated water and steam collect inside vast geothermal reservoirs beneath the ground. That's until engineers drill wells to tap those reservoirs, bringing steam and hot water to the surface. The steam spins turbines to generate electricity, while the hot water is piped directly to heat homes, offices, and entire cities. and almost nothing is wasted. Leftover heated water is cooled and injected back underground, completing a circular system powered by Earth itself. Geothermal is the backbone of Iceland's energy policy. In 2020, this small island nation produced 800 megawatts of geothermal power, and more than a quarter of its electricity comes from the Earth's heat.
I think probably about 90% of the population gets heating from geothermal, and then we're not talking about electrical power heating homes. It's physically hot water coming from these plants into people's house directly and heating their homes. The other 90%, of course, electrical power goes into the grid and goes to people's houses. They use some kind of electrical heating, but that can come from hydro or geothermal. It just depends on what the grid is doing every time.
Many of Iceland's geothermal plants sit on top of the action, built where tectonic plates are literally tearing the country open. One of the most important is operated by OnPower, sitting on an active volcano. It provides energy and hot water to Reykjavik and beyond. Árni Haraldsson is the CEO of the company, and he tells me that all this, at this scale, is only possible because of volcanoes.
So, like you said, so the plant which we're basically sitting in is based on a volcano. You know, we are sitting on a volcano, active volcano. That's how it works. So from here, we've been here since in this place since 2007, where we basically have drilled around the place around 123 deep wells, go around 2.5 kilometers down in the earth, where we harness the geothermal. What happens there is that we basically take up the steam and water and run it through the power plant, and then we basically send it down to Reykjavik and further as electricity or hot water, or actually both, sorry.
Iceland is lucky because it has more than 30 sort of active volcanoes, and you mentioned us sitting on a volcano right now being the source of the geothermal. Is it fair to say that this model only works in areas that are active volcanic areas? I mean, it's outside of Iceland. Is it a sustainable model?
It is a sustainable model. So basically, if you want to look at what we do, so we do have to have an active volcano, because we are drilling in 2.5 kilometers down, and we are harnessing 350 degrees down there. But we also have the opportunity of going into more lower warm, so lower heat, and that is different, and that's where also that is geothermal usage as well. So you have high heat, you have low heat, and low heat doesn't have to be sitting on the volcano, and you can see that both here in Iceland, which we are using low heat and the high heat just to warm pretty much all of Iceland. But you see it now also in Europe getting more and more that they are tapping into the low heat, using the geothermal there, which doesn't really mean that they are sitting on top of a volcano.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Electricity and heating is the major byproduct of this, but talk to me about some of the, when you look at the value chain, some of the creations, the downstream creations as a result of this plant.
Yeah, it's because I always remember when I started here, I thought, well, we come into a power plant, you produce, electricity and hot water, that's it. And we had the geothermal park, and we started to learn a little bit about that. There are gases coming out that can be utilized. There are the water that actually is being separated from and does not go downtown, basically. We can also sell that, and that's what we sell here. So it's used as a circular into the geothermal park. And so these are byproducts coming from the geothermal. So I think it's important to think of geothermal not only as either water or electricity, but a vast array of different streams.
If you're just waking up now, tell me where OnPower is and geothermal will be in about a decade's time.
I can tell you that. So I think we will have, because the past of here is that we have abundance of geothermal. So basically, when we needed more, we just went out, we drilled a well, we plugged it in, and then that's it. And we got enough electricity and hot water. But now the future is looking more into like more streams. Specifically, you can look at the low heat as well, because you can utilize low heat much more. In Iceland, we never utilized lower heat than, say, 50 degrees. In Europe, would be perfect, 50 degrees. But here, if it's not 100 degrees or 200 degrees, we overlook it. So I think this is where On Power in the next decade will continue to look into is how to broaden their horizon in geothermal. And of course, we want to continue to work on this beautiful power plant, but we also see the opportunities of maybe localizing geothermal in further areas in Iceland, like we will be doing in Europe. Not me, but we will be doing as people.
While Arni presented a glimpse of what is possible, I wanted to see firsthand how the country has been reaping the benefits. Sigurdur, a specialist in the plant's operations, showed me how it all comes together. The basics are simple, actually. Wells are drilled deep underground. The steam is channeled directly here, where it drives turbines, producing electricity. But it's the growing demand for hot water that's pushing Europe's largest geothermal plant to expand. As Iceland's population grows, so does its demand for everything from heating to hot tubs. But sometimes other minerals are also coming up along with the heated water.
Yeah, so we're expanding our thermal station, which will take our capacity for hot water production up to 1,500 liters per second of 85 degree sea water. And we are expecting to start the expansion up at next fall 26. So we should be ready to tackle next winter. I would say so scaling is always a problem. There's a lot of minerals that come up from the ground with the geothermal fluids that we have to handle, mostly silica scaling. And these are deposited in our pipelines and our equipment, and they will reduce the output of, for example, the thermal station. So that's an ongoing challenge, but we have been researching ways to acidify the water, the geothermal fluid, which will inhibit, to a certain degree, the scaling.
What makes this country stand out is that it doesn't waste a drop. The leftover hot water and geothermal byproducts are used in various businesses, none that you directly correlate geothermal energy with off the top of your head. If you think about it, it's not just a power plant, but rather an energy ecosystem that Iceland has created. And to understand how this works on the ground, I sat down with Lilja Magnúsdóttir, Executive Vice President of Resources at another geothermal giant, HS Orka, in the middle of an 800-year-old lava field.
Talk to me about some of the challenges in terms of increasing capacities. Is that something that you deal with?
Yes, we have, of course, the geothermal reservoir has a certain size, and that tells us what the capacity of the plant can be, but then it's something that we have to work with and try to optimize. And we have done, for example, at Reykjanes, we are taking the fluid and steam from the ground. It goes through high pressure turbines, and then the water would just be injected back into the reservoir. But now we have added a low pressure turbine that then takes the water from the high pressure turbines and produces even more electricity to fully utilize that fluid and energy that we are taking from the ground.
This idea of circularity is one that seems to be very common here in Iceland, but you are literally the where it all begins.
Yes, yes. We have the resource park here that utilizes the multiple streams from our plants For example, we have hot or warm seawater that's perfect for fish farming. We also have the Blue Lagoon, where you can go and bathe in the warm water. Then we have the Carbon Recycling International that captures the carbon dioxide from our plant and combines it with hydrogen that's produced via electrolysis using the renewable electricity from our plant as well, and produces renewable liquid fuel. And that plant was one of the first industrial scale plants in the world that's been used then as a model for other plants internationally.
Okay. Obviously, besides renewable energy sources, talk to me about sustainability in terms of goals and where you want to be.
Yeah, so we definitely want to make sure that our production is sustainable, and we ensure that by using our reservoir models to fully understand how much we need to inject to maintain the pressure in the reservoir. And of course, our production plan, the goal there is to maintain sustainability. And we take the regular pressure measurements to make sure that our production is sustainable.
Just down the road is another link in that circularity, the Haustuck Fish Factory. Drying fish for preservation has been an age-old practice in Iceland. However, the process, which used to take weeks outside in the wind, now, well, it's all done indoors, powered by the hot water from nearby geothermal plants, and it's all pumped in directly through these giant pipes. Each week, this seafood processing plant exports more than 40 tons of what was once discarded, providing a vital source of protein to halfway around the world.
So, we're in the fish factory. Tell me more.
Yes. So here in Haustuck, we use byproduct from the fish. So we use the heads and the bones and the liver to make something out of it. So we dry the heads and the bones, and most of our products are sold to Nigeria. The liver, we make cod liver oil from it.
Okay. And the drying process, and that's used the geothermal energy coming right next door.
Yeah, exactly. So we use the energy from Hauisorka, the geothermal energy, to heat up our system. So we get hot water from them and we heat up our system by using that instead of using too much electricity.
But the advantage of that is obviously Iceland has a storied history when it comes to drying fish. But when you're talking mass production, especially to markets like Nigeria, you're going to need a cheap and renewable energy source.
Yeah, exactly. And many years ago, usually we dried a lot of fish outside. It's a very long process, takes a lot of time. So it's very useful to use this energy and be able to do this. We do almost everything inside now using this kind of energy.
And the fish come in through here to tell us what we're seeing over here.
So the heads go through here and we put them on the racks. And from the racks, they get to these cells where they're dried for like 5 to 7 days. And they go to about 20% moisture. And then we take them out of the cells and they go to the next phase of drying.
Is there any particular reason for that 20% moisture?
So we want to get it to 12% in the end before we send it. And it's so that it can keep intact when we send it, but also have all the proteins and everything in it.
And it falls below, let's say 10%, it becomes too brittle?
Yeah, it becomes too brittle and it can become dust.
Okay.
So we want it to hold. We want it to be like whole when we send it. But we also want to, so we take it out and it goes to after drying, and then it goes to like the third phase. So it's about 3 weeks from the beginning phase until we can send it to Nigeria.
In Norse mythology, Iceland was the land of giants and gods. Today, it's a land of innovation. It is proof that so much can be done. Geothermal here is more than electricity and power. It's the basis of circular thinking in action. And after spending time surrounded by dry fish, I think it's fair to say I deserve something a little more refreshing. The same hot water that heats homes and factories also offers the warmth of a hot tub in near freezing temperatures, all outdoors. A geothermal spa never disappoints.
Standing in the Blue Lagoon in the middle of winter, you're clearly seeing Iceland's geothermal story come full circle. This country's volcanic geology pushes heat to the surface, essentially turning our Earth into one giant renewable energy source. And the excessive warmth isn't wasted. It's used to dry the seafood, warm homes, even the waters of this lagoon that we're standing. Iceland's geology isn't just about nature. It's a completely circular energy source, one that others can emulate. Well, that's it for this edition of NexTech from Iceland. I'm Adisha Rayannar, and we'll see you next time.